All right. It is May 16th, 2024, 8:03 a.m., and we're here on the Rise and Grind Morning Show, getting it rocked on Detroit Lions today. We're going to talk about a topic that I'm sure still hurts, and it's about the Cowboys game from last season and how the NFL really screwed this up, and they're really not doing anything to bridge this gap of transparency. I caught wind of Chris Sims and Mike Florio talking about this same subject the other day while I was doing some landscaping, and I thought, this is a good topic. Let's get the schedule out and let's talk about it just a little bit, because there's some wonderful things that the UFL is doing, which we'll talk about here in a few moments, and there's some things that the NFL just hasn't wanted to do, and there's a big divide here between transparency and really understanding what the NFL is up to during these times of replay and other issues. So good morning to everybody in the chat. Good morning to you, Eric. How you doing today?
Oh, fantastic as always. It's supposed to be 70 degrees in a couple days up here. Our first day above 70. I can't believe it.
And we've had some hot ones south here. But these nice mornings of 56 degrees, I can't lie. That's perfect weather to me. It's a good hoodie day, at least in the morning before the sun gets blazing when I'm out back. But so let's talk about the Cowboys situation for a minute. Obviously, we have the Cowboys coming up, this season. It's an away game just after our bye week this year. So I think that the NFL did us a solid there, right? We get a nice little bye week before we have to take on the Cowboys, which helps with traveling. And I guess to talk more about the schedule, I saw a few comments on Twitter last night that some people thought our schedule sucked. I don't know that I would agree with that. I think that, there's some issues with having a bye week early. But at the same time, when you look at the amount of traveling that we have to do, it's never easy to travel out west. It's never easy to travel to the deep south and then coordinate all of that and still having, games that aren't so tight together that really exhaust teams. We've been fortunate, like last year, I think we traveled the least amount out of any team, before the playoffs. We traveled, the least amount. And this year, I would say that our traveling is still pretty low. It might be one of the lowest in the league, to be honest with you. Maybe top 10 as far as like best top 10, schedules to have to travel for. And then when you look at how it's lined up, I feel that it's pretty solid. So let's bring up the schedule real quick. What did you think about the traveling situation?
I think we're fine there. We don't have to go overseas like all the other teams in the NFC North all have a game either in Germany, England, or Brazil. So they're going all over the place. We don't have to do that. So that's more rest for our Lions.
Yeah, very, very true. And we kick off the season with, a couple of preseason games, which are really, really good games. So we have the Chiefs. Who else do we have this year? Why do I only see the Chiefs listed right now? That's not correct.
Oh, here, I'll find it.
1 second. You sent it to me last night too. So we have the Giants and then the Chiefs and then the Steelers. Correct. And we have 2 away games for preseason. And the reason why that is because we have 9 home games. So they're trying to, level the playing field here with how many home and away games we get. It may be that we have an away situation against the Giants. Now, I haven't confirmed this yet, Well, we may have dual practice with the Giants this year. We might also have some training camp practices, obviously in Detroit against another team. But there was some talk about doing some away travel this summer for the Lions. Again, I haven't confirmed it. We'll look into it and see if we can't get some more answers. I'll make a couple phone calls today. But the away games, obviously for the preseason, are no big deal. But taking on the Chiefs early, I love it. I love the fact that we're taking on the Chiefs early. That gives our second, third, fourth tier guys an opportunity to go up against a pretty good football team. Obviously, the Super Bowl champion, from last season, totally different team this year, but still a pretty darn good team. What do you think about the preseason games? Our last game is against the Steelers. Obviously, all the times are to be determined. What do you think about our preseason games?
Well, usually Dan likes to take either that first or second preseason game and make it into a scrimmage type of practice with that other team and use that instead of the actual preseason game for his starters to get their work in. So I'm guessing if he can make it happen, it will probably be against the Chiefs and try to do some joint practices with the Chiefs during that week. If I had to guess, that would be what we would do, because we've done it with the Giants before where we did the joint practices in preseason, and we've never done it with the Steelers or the Chiefs. So I would suspect trying to do it with the Chiefs in the middle there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I think that would be great. But I think that the scrimmage would probably have to be out in Kansas City, I assume, if the game is out there. So we'd be out there for a few days. I don't know that I would travel for any of that, but either way, I really appreciated the schedule, to be honest with you. I don't appreciate, the fact that the Lions are playing 3 games again within like 11 days. I think that is complete nonsense, especially when the NFL has the opportunity to add another bye week if they really wanted to. I don't think that the NFLPA or the collective, bargaining agreement that's already in place would be an issue. They can ratify these things. They can make changes to these things. And when they talk about player safety and changing all of these on-field rules, hello, Goodell, like the most important player safety is rest. If your players, right, don't have proper rest, and they're going from game to game to game, that's how players get injured. They can't recover. And this game is not easy. I mean, these are, minor, but multiple automobile crashes every single week that these guys are going through. And I think that they're really getting it wrong here. So not only is the NFL really screwing up the referee or the officiating transparency, but I feel like they're really screwing up here on the player safety and taking it serious enough to not afford these teams an opportunity to not have rest. I think that's a big mistake. Another bye week. What are you doing? I mean, you're adding an extra week on. Give everybody the same bye week. Make sure everyone has a week off. But I have a feeling they're more worried about making money that week. Find something else to do that week. Do something else NFL related that week. There's something that they can do. There's plenty of things that I'm sure that the entire NFL world, the analysts, the sportscasters, the broadcasters, everybody, they would love to have that week to kind of catch up and catch their breath. And I'm sure there's plenty of, of things to talk about. Maybe they do something different that week and the NFL gets together and they go do something for charity that entire week. Figure something else out. What do you think about adding a bye week here?
I'd love it. You could stagger it. So you still have games. You just have a limited amount of games for a week. It would be easy to do. It'd be super easy to do. And Goodell already wants the Super Bowl on the following week on President's Day weekend, so everyone can have the 3-day holiday. They can have that Monday off after President's Day, after the Super Bowl, because that's the number one day for people to call in, is the day after the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl gets rolling so late in the day. It's never super early. It's always like 6:30 at night, I think, Eastern time. So I think it would be great, and they could stagger it. Not everyone would have to be on the exact same week. It could be 3 to 5 weeks after your current bye week that you have. So let's say the Lions have theirs in week 5 this year. They'd have another one in week 10 or 11, say, towards the end of the year. more.
No, it would. What I'm saying is, it would have to be during that stretch of 3 games in 11 days.
Yeah,
That's where the bye week needs to be. There's no way that any team should have to play 3 games in 11 days. So there needs to be a bye week in there. And that's what did make sense to me is they could put the bye week literally the week before, the week after Thanksgiving. And that way that team has that rest, going through that stretch, because it's not an easy stretch. And the teams that are playing on Thanksgiving seem to get screwed the most. Now, I haven't looked at everybody else's schedule that's playing on Thanksgiving, but how many other teams during that stretch have to play, or the play on Thanksgiving have to play 3 games in 11 days? Because if it's not even, if it's not equal, then it's unfair. And then you're talking about unfair practices in the NFL. If you really want things to be fair and you want fans to be happy and you want the NFL product to be good, I think that there needs to be a discussion here on the schedule needs to be fair. The time between, teams having to play each other needs to be fair. It all needs to be fair then. So they can do a better job on this. I would rather see them get rid of a preseason game, to put in another bye week if that's what they had to do.
Sure.
But that's just my opinion. I've been hard up on this now for probably more than 5 years. I've been harping on this through social media that this is a problem. This has just been a problem every year, and I really expected it to change this year, but it didn't. So last night we went through the schedule. Eric went on a limb here, said we're going to go 15-2. He's got a lot of games we're winning by double digits. I have the Lions going 14-3, and I felt like, I think that 14 is the number, right, to win that first seed. I really think that, if a team can get to 14 wins this year, that's the key. That's the golden ticket, they call it, to get that first week bye. My biggest, wins here, or my biggest losses here were week 10, week 12, and then week 18. But week 18 only because we're not going to need week 18. And I felt like Hendon Hooker might get a, final chance to get in for a full game in week 18. I know that Dan Campbell doesn't like to rest players, but maybe he changes that this year if we get a chance to actually rest players. I feel like that decision is kind of fluid, right? I mean, it kind of depends on the healthier team at that time and where you belong here in the hierarchy of the playoff run. So we'll have to see how healthy the team is, and if they can lock it up by week 16 or 17, or even win the North by week 14, that would be huge for the Lions this year. Those are the kind of things that I'm thinking could happen. That week 14 could be a decision game for the Lions. And if it is, and we're already wrapping up the North, I think that we'll be well on our way to having a very successful postseason. So let's talk about some transparency. Now, I brought in some audio because I don't want to have the same situation that I had yesterday. If you guys see something that pops up that says, this audio can't be played or whatever, just let me know. I've never had an issue bringing in other YouTube to play. Now, I've always done it on video. There may be a live component there that you can't bring it in. But being a media channel, it's all fair use, so it shouldn't be an issue. So I'm going to have to write YouTube today a nice little letter. But I want to bring in Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and let's listen to what they said, okay? But first, I'm going to have to dig the dagger in the wound here. And we're going to have to look at what the NFL said last year about the Lions.
The defensive team, and will make an announcement to the stadium before that play. It is the responsibility of the player.
Sorry, I had to rewind it.
As a reminder to clubs and players, an offensive player numbered.
So the backstory to this is you see Skipper running on the field, and they were trying to say that he was signaling to the ref, and he was doing that multiple times throughout the game, and that he, came in and said that he was eligible multiple times throughout the game. That was in after the game. I forget what they call the referee meeting that they have, but that's what Brad Allen was saying. Well, it was all BS because we know that Dan Skipper only got in for like 2 snaps that entire game. So how could he come in multiple times and claim that he was eligible when he only played like 2 snaps the entire game, this being the first one? So when he came in, he was not signaling to the ref. He was signaling jumbo package with his arm in a strength position. That arm right there, that's jumbo package. He is signaling to the offense, we are going in jumbo. That's what that means. That is not eligible. And by the NFL definition of the rules to claim eligibility, you have to signal it or verbalize it. But actually in the rules, it doesn't say anything about signaling only. You have to verbalize it to the refs. So they even got that wrong in this video.
To clubs and players, an offensive player numbered 50 through 79 or 90 through 99 is permitted to line up.
Okay, so that's where he did go to the ref, right? You saw him, he caught the ref's attention and said, hey, I'm eligible.
Up as an eligible pass receiver. To allow the defense an opportunity to match personnel.
This is the second play. Again, jumbo. So they're trying to say that he was deceptive. Well, how is he being deceptive? And you circle him in yellow when, again, he's running on the field signaling jumbo.
To ensure fairness, the player must immediately report the
Decker and Sewell already reported. Now, I know we're digging up old wounds here, but we're going to roll through it kind of quick. They already reported. He was just running up to the field. Obviously, they're trying to play a little coy here, right? Deception or not, that's what the entire NFL is about. That you have to be smarter than the other guy in the field, right? And that's what Dan Campbell does. He just tries to outsmart people. So there was no deception here that was illegal. There was nothing against the NFL rules. It's just we being the Lions, outsmarted the refs, the NFL, and the Cowboys, and they didn't like that.
The change in his eligibility status to the referee, who will inform the defensive team and will make an announcement to the stadium before that play. It is the responsibility of the player to be sure that change in status is clearly communicated to the referee.
Obviously, you can see Sewell and Decker are already talking to Brad Allen. Brad Allen was walking away when Skipper came up.
By both a physical signal with his hands,
we all know it was bull crap,
in front of his chest, and to report to the referee his intention to report as an eligible receiver. Any player reporting as eligible must line up initially and remain in an eligible.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
It is the responsibility of that change in status is clearly communicated to the referee by both a physical signal with his hands up and down in front of his chest and to report to the referee his intention to report as an eligible receiver.
Now that is false. Nowhere in the NFL rules does it say that you have to brush the front of your chest with two hands and verbalize. It says that you have to verbalize to the referee. Nowhere does it say you have to brush up and down. Now, I know that other analysts have said that, other referees have said that, but I've read the rule book. I have a copy of the rule book. I even PDF'd the rule book because I didn't want them to make changes to it later. So I have the actual copy, and I don't have it pulled up right now, but I can share it at any time. So the thing I want you guys to pay attention here is when they go up to the offensive line. If you know what you're doing on the defensive line, you already know who is eligible. You have to look at who's on the line and who's off the line and where they line up, inside a tight end or outside a tight end. Are they the tight end?
Any player reporting as eligible must line up initially and remain.
Okay, so now they're trying to claim, at least by what the video is trying to say, that Skipper is eligible and that you have to line up in a certain position. Well, you can see right here, Penei Sewell is up on the line, right? That's Penei Sewell to the far right, inside Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown is on the line. Sam Laporta is off the line. Down here on the bottom end of the screen, Taylor Decker is lined up to the far left, and then you have Josh Reynolds inside on the line. So you have to have so many people in or on the line and off the line, and then it has to be where they're lined up in succession up and down the line if they're eligible or not. But they're trying to say that Skipper lined up wrong. Skipper wasn't even eligible.
In an eligible position.
So now they changed. So now you have to look at what did they change. So you have Sam Laporta off the line, Amon-Ra's on the line, Skipper never moved. Josh Reynolds is off the line. Taylor Decker is on the line.
To do so, or if he is covered up by another player, will result in an illegal.
Okay, so they're trying to say now that Skipper is covered up by another player, and they pointed to who next to him. They pointed to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's perfect, right? So that means that he is not eligible. Skipper is not eligible. Is Taylor Decker covered up by another player? Can you see that on the bottom part of the line there? Josh Reynolds is off the line. Perfect lineman. They did nothing wrong. So with Taylor Decker being on the line and Reynolds off the line, that means that Decker is now eligible because he is not covered up. I put the onus on the Cowboys. Like, they got outsmarted. And that's what this really boiled down to, is Jerry World got his panties in a twist because his team got outsmarted.
In an illegal formation.
So there's zero illegal formation on this line, especially with the way that they reported, said that they reported, and then lined up on the line after their motion.
Should the reporting player elect to remain in the game for an additional play, he must repeat the same reporting process to the referee.
All right, that's the last thing I'm going to share right there. So why is that important? Because Brad Allen made the statement during that game that, well, Skipper, came in multiple times and reported. And so, he just assumed that he was eligible again. That's the nuts and bolts of what he said. But the rule states every time you come in, you have to report. So Brad Allen went against the NFL rule by assuming, right, that Skipper was coming in to report. Instead of having a conversation with Skipper, he just assumed, knowing that the rule states every single time you stay in for a play and you want to need to be eligible, you have to report that. So that's what I wanted to start with this morning on this NFL officiating, that they're still screwing up because there's another league out here that is getting it right. And we're getting it right in the UFL. And I think that they're doing an excellent job with how they've started implementing things for transparency. And that's the basis of today's conversation, is how can the NFL get better? How can they eliminate these issues? Eric, obviously you've gone through the heartbreak through this situation. You've seen, I'm sure, hundreds of videos and had dozens and dozens of conversations about it. When this happened, I mean, obviously you were gut punched, right? But after the fallout, what was your initial feeling after the fallout of how did the NFL, what did they do to make you feel better about it? Number one, did you feel better about it? Number two, do you feel like they did enough, or did they really kind of leave you hanging? I guess give me your initial reaction after all of the fallout from this.
I went from the most absolute high to the most absolute low in about 60 seconds. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. We couldn't believe it. That play was ran perfectly legal. And then for them a couple days later to come out with this mumbo jumbo video that makes no sense, that goes against what they say, was like a slap in the face. I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel better whatsoever. It just made me even more mad and more infuriated that because of that game, we lost out on a chance to be the number one seed in the NFC. Because you have to remember that game caused a chain reaction that forced the 49ers and the Rams in the final week of the season to not even give a darn about that game. They all played their backups. There wasn't a single starter playing in that game. So the Rams won the game, but it doesn't matter because the 49ers already had the number one seed locked up. And we could have been playing for that number one seed at 13 with 13 wins on the final week of the season. And that would have forced the 49ers to have to beat the Rams in the final week of the season. And it just blew everything up. And I think that was very demoralizing to the Lions. And I think it really had a lasting effect even into the playoffs, even though we won our first two playoff games. When we got to that San Francisco game and we got ahead and then we got behind, I think that whole feeling came back again of, oh, here we go again. It's us against the refs. It's us against the NFL again. And that's the feeling I had sitting in the stands. I'm like, no, not again, not again, not again. And it was that whole
I
feeling.
didn't feel like there was anything wrong with the refs in that game, though, in the NFC title.
No, but
was a-
that feeling again of,
Yeah.
man, if we try to do this again, are they going to let us do it again? If we tie this game up and go for 2, is that going to happen again?
I see what you're saying now. Now I understand, because we were on the cusp of having to make a decision on, were we going to have to go for 2 again? So yeah, no, I agree with all that. I mean, in according to some of the people in the chat, I mean, the words are devastated and then anger, and Tracy says they had to do something to flip the script on the Lions, or the San Francisco game being in Detroit turns out differently. I was shocked by that bad call by the refs. The call should have never been made. I mean, you feel the pain, and I'm not trying to drudge up all the pain this morning. Unfortunately, it's there, right? I mean, it's always going to be there. It's going to be a moment now in NFL history that once again the Lions are the butt end of jokes and the butt end of memes and the butt end of what we thought was going to be a rule change again. Didn't happen. And that's where the NFL is getting it wrong. Number one, here's my stance on reporting. I don't think you should have to report. I really don't. I feel like you are professionals. You should know. If I know how to line up, right? I'm not a professional athlete. I don't play in the NFL. But if I can look at a line and say, okay, I see what's going on here. This person's eligible. This person's not. Why can't Micah Parsons do that? Why can't anybody else on the Cowboys defense do that? Why can't their defensive coordinator do that? They can, right? But they don't in that moment of time because they're so busy, right? The game happens too fast. Well, nut up. Do your job. You should be able to recognize that Taylor Decker was eligible. He shouldn't have to report just by simply lining up in the right alignment. I feel like I'm using that word way too often this morning. You can pick it out. And, when you watch a game at home or whatever, and or even in the stands, yeah, it's kind of difficult to see some of that stuff. Maybe, some transparency there with having to report helps. And then you understand. But at the same time, then, I mean, if you're reporting, aren't you just giving the defense an opportunity now? You're giving them an opportunity to switch out players. You're giving them an opportunity to switch up their defense. I feel it kind of removes that element of what they call deception, but that's the game of football. Like, every play is how do you deceive your opponent to win? It's not a bad thing, right? It's not bad deception. It's just part of the game. So I really was disappointed by the way the NFL handled this. Really, really, really disappointed. So now I want to go into Chris Sims and Mike Florio. And I think this was about a 10-minute video. And since I don't have the video up, I don't know if I'm really going to be able to fast forward it to get to the spots that I want to get to. So just hang with us for about 10 minutes. This is a great conversation, like an extremely good conversation about how the NFL is getting it wrong. And the fact that it came from Mike Florio and Chris Sims, like Chris Sims was more pissed off. You could tell. So I'm not a big fan of Florio, but anyway, I feel like they did a good job on this subject. And it talks more about not just the Lions and the Cowboys situation, but the officiating kind of overall. So we'll get into that right now.
Bills reportedly are the team that has hired John Perry to be the officiating liaison. I was poking around about this yesterday. The thinking was, well, it's got to be a team with a new head coach. That, somebody said, how about the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh? How about the Commanders, Dan Quinn? As it stands, no, it's Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills. And McDermott is among the worst at success rate in throwing the red flag. And that's one of the things that Perry is going to do, help them know when to throw the red flag and when not to throw the red flag, among other things. But he's going to be talking to the coach during the games. Yeah. And I'm surprised it took this long.
I hear you there.
Instead of, we see that the referees who get to a certain point of fame, stardom, whatever, they end up working for a network, making more money, and having less stress in their lives than being a referee. Now you've got this possibility of teams, and it raises potential conflict of interest issues like, oh, this person angling for a job. I mean, that's going to be the
or I
new
used to know
fixes
these
in.
refs, and now
Well,
I'm up in the booth.
Well, but
but
the new fixes in is going to be, hey, that guy wants to be the officiating liaison for the team he just made that good call for. I mean, it does introduce a new can of worms for the NFL.
Yeah.
And we still haven't really played this out. All we know for now is reportedly the Bills are hiring Perry, and this is a new frontier for the NFL, and I wonder how the NFL feels about it.
Well, listen, I certainly have things that I question about the whole process and how it's set up with the NFL officiating. Everything about it, how they recruit, the people they get to do it, all of it. It all deserves to be questioned full-time, all of it, right? If we really dissect it and how they're doing it right now, there's some issues within that. And you could talk to anybody in the league about that. They would tell you the same thing. You know, I think I'm with you. First off, I'm shocked it took this long. I think it's a great move. I don't think it's a position that teams in the NFL really valued monetarily, right? They were always like, well, I trust this guy. He knows ball. I'll let him do it up there in the booth, right? That's kind of always who it was for every NFL team. I trust his eyes. He's always on top of the game, you know, and I know he won't be too rambunctious to go challenge everything, right? So I'll let him be the voice of reason.
So in case you don't grasp what they're talking about, is John Perry, former NFL official, is now joining the Bills, I believe is the team that he's going to, as their challenge guy, right? Someone that's going to be in their booth and telling the team when to challenge. The fact that it is a relatively new, ref, someone that is just left kind of the NFL as an official, is what they're kind of throwing hay against here. Like, is this guy going to be like, nope, that's wrong, and just obliterate, the NFL during these games is a possibility. So I think it's a great move that they're getting somebody like this that can help them with their challenging. But now they're thinking it could create some issues where it could be too much for the NFL to handle. Let me rewind this just a little bit.
Perry, what do you think? Oh, we got to the AFC Championship because we won that. Nuance, everything about it to really lead you in that direction. And the Bills and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and company find real value in that. And I think there should be. Again, some of those calls can dictate whether you're the number 1 seed. And then, oh, wait, we're the number 1 seed. And, oh, this is a big challenge here. John Perry, what do you think? Oh, we got to the AFC Championship because we won that challenge. So, yeah, there's something to say about this. And, again, you talk about the NFL doesn't pay the referees, right? John Perry, as crazy of a year as it was last year, I know this, I think was a little disappointed he wasn't used more. And then he got one, who would want to do a job where the NFL goes, no, you're wrong on TV. You're wrong on a play that was very subjective.
And it was a stupid
You're
first
wrong.
quarter.
You're wrong, guy that's been awesome at this for a long time. And a guy that I think is actually better than the guy that we're going to tell you you're wrong for. That would be my thinking in there. Right?
And you're referring to the Monday night game between the Raiders and the Lions, where there was a fairly inconsequential
grounding, right?
Non-call.
We're always involved.
Right.
And was it Perry saying it should have been?
I think he said it should have been grounding, and the league was saying.
And then in comes Walt Anderson, dropped out of the blue, first time ever
in NFL
live
history.
on camera, the VP of officiating on the air, saying, "Here's why the call was made," which was just bizarre. I remember my phone blew up from people in the industry like, what in the hell?
Again, the NFL trying to cover their tracks, right? I mean, why else would you have the VP of officiating just randomly pop up on a video? Now we'll talk about another league that's getting it right and doing these types of things, but you know what? They started out doing it that way. So we'll keep going. It's almost done here. It's about halfway done now.
What are they doing here? What this crosses a bridge that makes you wonder when else are they going to use this? And from Perry's standpoint, he got emasculated.
From what I know in the league, this is going to be a thing. From what I'm hearing,
I think isn't this Walt Anderson's new gig?
It's commonplace now. This is what we're going to have every week. If the NFL wants to inject, it's going to be like they're allowed to inject and they're allowed to say, "Hey, we think you're wrong, TV channel, whatever."
I hope we're allowed to read.
So this is the other part, and then I love this part. So of course you're going to have Florio and Sims and all of these other people that are going to be on TV during these games, or they're part of the broadcasting teams, and they're going to talk about what happened on the field, right? And then now you're going to have the VP of officiating popping up and saying, "Nah, you got it wrong, Chris. You're wrong." And they don't know if they're going to have a chance to defend themselves, right? Or go through the process. So I think the NFL is kind of taking what happened last year with the Lions and just how bad it really was, not once, but then that blown call apparently in the Raiders game, in the Monday night game. And now they're trying to inject themselves into this superficially so that they can protect their image instead of just having transparency. Like, you can make this so easy. And I don't understand what's going on here unless, like Chris Sims said, you want all of these fans to continue on with the tinfoil hat, right? And wearing the tinfoil hat and thinking that the NFL is rigged and the games are rigged and the refs are betting on the games. And I mean, come on, it's crossed our minds. It's crossed everybody's minds, right? I think that anytime a situation happens like it did in Dallas, it really makes you wonder what was really going on. Like, how could you really botch it that badly? So we'll finish this out and then I'll get your comments on it, Eric.
Back to that.
When
they do
well,
that.
we will. On
We're
Monday
gonna
morning.
well, and or on Tuesday morning if it happens on a Monday night game or at PFT in real time as it's happening, because I did. I'm like, what are they doing here?
Right.
This creates a weird precedent, and maybe Perry just decided, I'm out. I'm not going to be part of that. I'll go work for a team, and. I remember Sean Payton telling us at one point on one of the times he was on the show that there's the mechanics of replay. When it's obvious you should throw the red challenge flag, they're blowing up your headset. When it's close, it's crickets.
Yeah.
You need that guy. And
that
I
has
was
the-
watching the
agreed.
UFL this weekend.
Right.
This is where they talk about it.
The transparency they have is spectacular. Mike Pereira and Dean Blandino. There's something wrong when the two guys on the planet who are the very best at explaining and understanding in a persuasive and transparent way football rules being applied in real time, when those two guys are working for the UFL and not the NFL, that's a problem. And the NFL needs to have that same kind of transparency. You want to get people to stop saying the fix is in, you have that kind of transparency. So you see what's going on behind the curtain. It's all hidden now. And I think they like it that way. The longer that lasts and we see it working for the UFL, the more I'm going to say, you know what? They don't want us to see what's behind the curtain, or they'd show us, because it would go a long way toward getting people to take off the tinfoil hats and say maybe the fix isn't in.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you there. We've hit that subject a lot. The NFL certainly needs to remedy this a little bit for all those reasons. There's too many questions about it now. Again, I don't mean to go this again, but yeah, it's another subject that I hear all the time. All the time. It's just about refereeing the issues within the league, right? I mean, whether it's trustworthy or not. I mean, the fixes in, the script, all of that has taken on a life of its own the last few years, and I do think the NFL has to be careful.
They act like they're these oracles that need to be, like the officials, like we have to protect them from any criticism, and you can't say anything bad about them, or they.
All right, that's really what I wanted to share from Mike Florio and Chris Sims. I'm glad we didn't have any issues with it. So really good points in there. Number one, Dean Blandino obviously was part of a botched call against the Cowboys 8 years ago or whatever it was. He's been involved. And then Mike Pereira, always been one of the most well-respected individuals, former official. I've always respected him, and not that I always agreed with him, but I always respected him. It was a funny statement. Two of the best to do it. If you consider Dean Blandino one of the better rules guys, he may not be the best at what he does, but he knows his stuff. Not working for the NFL and working for the UFL. Did they get pushed out? Were they critiquing the NFL and the officials too much, too often? Were they giving us too much information? Were they making the fans too smart? I don't know. Eric, what did you think about that conversation with Florio and Chris Sims? And then we're going to dive into the UFL a little bit.
It's an amazing conversation, and it's something that all, especially Lions fans, had in the last year or so. I don't know if you're a big 80s rock fan, but Guns N' Roses back in the 80s, Axl Rose had this thing that he used to say that there's no such thing as bad press,
Right.
because it gets people talking about you. And even when people are saying negative things, it makes your product more wanted by the public. So when Guns N' Roses would get arrested for having a bag of cocaine on a plane or something, they would have album sales like you wouldn't believe. Every time they'd get in trouble for something, their albums would go fantastic, ballistic, off the charts, sell a whole bunch of albums, right? I believe that is what the NFL is doing. They're using all the negative press to sell the NFL. It just gets people talking more engaged, more into it, and all the tinfoil hats come out, and it's nuts. And even I have to question my sanity sometimes watching Lions games, going, is this really rigged? What the heck is going on? Especially with that the Dallas 2-point play last year. I couldn't believe it. It absolutely blew my mind that 60 seconds later, they changed the call on the field, because what everybody forgets is when that play happened, we score, we go to commercial because there was a timeout. And when we come back, all of a sudden now the 2-point play doesn't count. We have to do it again. That it was just so odd. It was so odd. And unlike any play that's ever been done in the NFL, in the history of the NFL in over 100 years, that's never happened. It was so strange.
Yeah. So what's also odd is during the season, I noticed a lot less replays in the stands at the games. A lot less replays. We're not seeing the same amount of replays. What's really odd to me is they installed all of these new cameras everywhere in the stadiums. We're not seeing it. Why are we not seeing the replays? So I do feel like something is up here. I feel like the fan base is becoming too intelligent, right? We're beginning to know too much. We can see too much because the quality of cameras and the type of technology that is now available, it's making the experience better for everybody. But at the same time, it's calling into question just about everything that these NFL referees are doing or not doing. I will say this in their defense. They have an extremely difficult job. This game happens way too quick. If you were to transplant any one of us in the chat, in these chairs, onto an NFL field and try to do what they do, I'm sorry, but we would all suck. It is an extremely difficult job. So to get things right as often as they do, hands down, I give them their kudos for that. But some of these real egregious, blatant errors that just seem like it's not an error, it's intentional. Those are the things that I have an issue with. For the most part, they get a ton right. They do a great job. But at the same time, there's a lot of games that we've witnessed as Lions fans where we feel it's just been intentional. And it doesn't help when you feel that way and then you watch a replay. Into the masses, it's, yep, he was in. It was a touchdown. No problem. And then the ref comes on and says, nope, wasn't a touchdown. Wasn't in. Bobbled the ball or something. You know what I mean? And it never looked that way. And you look at every view of it and you don't see it. So how could someone else make that determination when, according to the NFL, we get to see all the same replays the ref does? So now let's talk about the UFL and how they're getting it right. So the United Football League, they prioritize transparency with the audience throughout every game. They want to ensure that clarity in officiating, both rules and penalties, and moreover, the league actively utilizes their social media to engage with its audience in real time, fostering interactive and dynamic experiences for fans to stay connected and informed. The UFL utilizes X, formerly known as Twitter, as their primary social media platform for fostering this transparency and the authenticity within the fan base. As opposed to many other organizations that may view social media primarily as a means for generating engagement and monetization purposes, the UFL doesn't. They're fostering transparency instead into the game that is no different than the NFL, other than its quirky little rules and, field size or whatever, right? So during games, UFL demonstrates its commitment to honesty and openness by actively engaging with its fans on the X platform. The league encourages fans to comment about plays in real time and responds to questions and comments to clarify officiating decisions, rules, and penalties. If you have not watched a UFL game, I would encourage you to start by watching one on TV, not so much at the field. Just watch one on TV, and you will see exactly what we're talking about here. You hear the conversations between the ref and the coach, the ref, and the eye in the sky or the sky judge, whatever. You hear it all. You see it all. It's incredible to listen to these coaches too, and the decisions they're making on the field. I mean, they're literally telling you the kind of the plays that they're doing and the conversations back and forth with the players. You hear everything. You can see just about everything. I'm not saying the NFL has to go to that length. I'm sure Dan Campbell's every other word would be beep, beep, beep. You know what I mean? But I think it would be incredible to be able to watch a game where this type of technology is being used and how open and transparent it would then feel, and maybe how it would settle the nerves of all the fans and make the product that much better on the field. Will it happen? Doubtful. I think to Eric's point, do they thrive on the negativity? Maybe. Maybe the NFL wants the negativity. Before I go on and, with this though, Chris Sims mentioned something else. And in speaking in terms of, the fans and the tinfoil hats and the script, right? The NFL did a couple of, funny videos where Goodell will come on and say that he and, the writers did the script and this is the script, and they hand the script around to, other players and they make a video about it. Well, that got into people's heads. And now a lot of people really believe that there's a narrative of a script and that this script is real, that it's like the WWE or whatever it's called now, that everything is pre-planned. I don't necessarily believe in that. I mean, do I think that there's some shady stuff going on in the NFL? Absolutely. We've seen it. We've been a part of it, been the butt of it. But do I think that there's really a script? No, I don't feel like there's a script. I think that a lot of this stuff really needs to be more transparent. The way that they're handling things on the field, I think it really needs to be more transparent. So before I go into much more on this, Eric, what do you want to say about the UFL and their transparency?
Well, the UFL gets it right. I was a big fan of the XFL and the USFL before that, and I thought they kind of got it right before, but now I think that the two leagues have merged, that they're really getting it right. And what do I mean by that? So I've been to games and I've watched a bunch of games. I've watched every Michigan Panther game. I record it so I can watch it later. And listen, they've had 7 weeks of games so far with 4 games per week. So that's 28 games. And in 28 games this season, there has not been not one controversial call that they didn't get right. Not one in 28 games. How does that happen? That doesn't happen in the NFL. We don't get 28 games without at least 1 or 2 really weird, strange calls. And the thing I like about the UFL now, they have, I think it's Mike Pereira in their New York studio, and he has 3 big screens in front of him, and there's a camera behind him. So when there is a review, they show him with the 3 screens exactly what he's looking at. You get to hear every single word he says, every word the ref says, every word that either head coach says, So there's nothing to hide. You hear what everyone has to say about the play, why they're making the decision that they're making, why they're overturning something or not overturning something. And then the thing that I like the best is even when a coach hasn't made a challenge and they just think that something was wrong on the play, they stop everything and they get it right. They stop it right there. The head judge from New York says, whoa, stop the action for a second. We're going to take a look at this last play. Okay, let's run it back. Can I see it from the other view, please? And they'll put the other view up on the screen. And then he's like, all right, the receiver's foot did touch the line on that one. We're going to put the ball back at the 47-yard line. It's going to be 2nd and 13 from the 47. And there's 2 minutes and 27 seconds on the clock. You know, they get everything right before they move on with the game. And it does not make the game go 4 hours like people
the
say.
NFL claims. Yeah. Like the NFL tries to say.
Oh, this is going to take forever. And this is going to make the game so long. And it's going to make it so boring. No, people want to be in on this. They want to know what's going on. They want to know when there's something controversial or something that rides that line, just that razor's edge of, did his foot touch the line or did his foot not touch the line? You know, I like hearing that Pereira says, well, I really can't see it, so I'm going to have to go with what was called on the field. I don't want to overturn it because there's not enough here for me to see from any angle that they got it wrong. So let's just go with what's on the field. And he'll say it just like that. That is so awesome as a fan, and it makes the UFL a pleasure to watch. And I watch every game. I try to watch every single game every week. And it's not just because of Jake Bates. I really do enjoy the UFL. The Panthers have made the playoffs, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I wish I could go, but I just am not going to be able to go. The UFL, they're getting it right.
Yeah, they're definitely getting it right. You know, one of their statements here, and this is a quote by somebody, I don't know who it is. It doesn't tell me for some reason. But it says this: transparency in officiating was a key element in the XFL during the 2023 season. And one of the best practices that we brought over into the UFL, this was a UFL spokesperson. It just doesn't tell me who. The ability to provide viewers with a peek inside the review process was well received. And we wanted to maintain that level of transparency. You know, with this approach, not only does the UFL enhance the overall viewing experience for fans, I believe it also strengthens that bond between the league and its audience, resulting in increased loyalty and trust in the process, right? I mean, the trust in what they're doing. Believing in the fact that, you know, even though they're attached at the hip to all of these betting sites, that maybe the things that are actually happening in the NFL are legit. You know, Broski Bear brings up a good point, but we just kind of put that one to rest too, that he says sports will never be perfect. And if you remove the human element or decide to review everything, it never takes a second. It takes forever. The flow of the game will be ruined and the game gets drawn out. So what we've recognized, Broski Bear, if you have not watched the UFL, it does not lengthen the game at all. If anything, I would say that it will speed up the game because you have so much communication already going on with every play before they stop a play. You already have the communication between the coaches and the refs and you know, the box and the sky. Everybody is talking consistently. And you have people designated on your team that are involved in those conversations. So if you have someone that is, you know, on the, you know, Panther sideline and they're in the ref's ear saying, hey, something happened on that play, you might want to stop and review it real quick. They're already moving. Like, I mean, it's light speed. They're just moving right into it. You don't even know what's really happening. They're just bang. They're just right into review process and they're done. And the ball's, you know, placed where it needs to be. The time is put where it needs, just like Eric was stating. And the game goes on. It is quick. It is so smooth the way that they've been able to handle all of this. I think that the NFL gets it wrong when they don't have the communication, because you have to stop and then start the communication as opposed to having the communication during, you know, the next play. So let's just say they get a 1st and 10. they put the ball down. And during that whole time of collecting the ball, putting the ball down on the spot, and then restarting the next play, they've already had conversations. And those conversations are leading up to them putting the ball down and then stopping the play, as opposed to 30 seconds into the play, they haven't snapped the ball yet, and then a flag comes out, right? And then the play stops, and then they have to stop what they're doing, go to commercial. This will give the NFL more opportunities for mini commercials too. They can make more money off of this by utilizing the time, but I think that they need to put all of this information out there. It needs to be available uncut, streamed somewhere uncut, so that you have access to all of this, even if it's part of the NFL Plus subscription, where you could have access to all of this uncut. I think that would be an awesome way to go about it. Make it part of that transition. Go ahead.
So one other thing, I will say this, Broski Bear, I challenge you to go to a UFL game. All of you guys, go to a UFL game. You will be amazed at the speed of the game, and you don't hear any of this at the game. You don't hear them over the loudspeaker talking to the refs or any of that, and you'll be amazed at the speed of the game and how it doesn't slow it down at all. And it seems very, very fast. And the game, when I went and watched the Stallions play at the Panthers at Ford Field a couple weeks ago, and I was amazed at the speed of the game. And I was waiting to hear over the PA system the refs talking and all that. It didn't happen. And it's a totally different experience watching it live or watching it on TV. And then I watched the game on TV later, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, because I didn't hear any of that in the stadium.
Yeah, so then he wanted to come back and say that more commercials isn't appealing to the fans. Look, you guys are in a streaming environment now where they started out by saying, buy this streaming service, you won't have commercials. And guess what? Now there's commercials in every streaming platform. Besides YouTube, if you pay for YouTube Premium, you don't get any commercials. But I've paid for every single streaming platform out there because it didn't have commercials. And guess what? Now it does.
Commercials.
It's no different than what cable used to be. And it's just loaded with commercials. And I'm not saying that they're going to have commercials every 30 seconds here. But what I'm saying is you can make all of this available in a different platform that is uncut. So you can watch it all from open to close, from snap to whistle. You can watch it all uncut, no commercials. If you really wanted to, you just got to pay for it. I mean, again, it's another way for the NFL to make, an extra $5 a month on hundreds of millions of subscriptions. I'm just giving them an opportunity to give us transparency. If I had to pay for transparency, I would. I don't think that it's necessary. I think that the transparency should be there, but I do believe that every fan out there would agree we need more transparency as a fan, but I also believe it would be good for the brand of the NFL to remove this element of negativity. But again, if they're thriving on negativity for engagement, I guess I would poo-poo on that. I really would. I think that's a bad way to run a business on negativity. If that's the fact, and I can't imagine that they are. I mean, I really can't imagine that they would want negativity surrounding their brand, because they've been under fire for a long time, a very long time. And with a few very specific teams, that have always been kind of the butt of all of these issues. So anyway, that's what we wanted to share this morning about the UFL. And then we had some additional rules. You had some things you wanted to talk about too?
Oh yeah, like the super challenge is pretty cool, that they can, let's say there's a really super bad holding play and it's blatant and obvious against Aiden Hutchinson. Wouldn't it be so cool if Dan Campbell could throw the flag and say, hey, there was a horrible holding call on that last play. They can actually look at it and get it right. And they can challenge anything they want. And they've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah, so on the coaching challenges, each coach may challenge any ruling, including fouls or potential fouls, meaning if they thought that there was a foul on the play, they can challenge that and say, hey, I want you to go look at that play for the foul that happened. And they can do that one time during the course of the entire game, provided that the team has a timeout remaining. So again, it's not removing or increasing, I should say, any more time to the game. because what they're doing is replacing that challenge with the timeout. So instead of taking a timeout, you're just throwing a challenge. It's no different. About the same amount of time is taken. So a successful challenge, though, would not result in a loss of a timeout. So they'll be able to withhold that timeout. But the timeout is lost if the challenge is obviously unsuccessful. I do agree with this super challenge. And I think that this would be an incredible addition to the NFL that, you know, if Dan Campbell says, you know what, Aiden Hutchinson's getting held on every freaking play. I want you to review this one at this time because this is a critical point in the game. And he throws his little red flag. And he super challenges a holding call on Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, come on. I hear everybody complain how often Aiden is held. Wouldn't you want the ability to be able to review that? And maybe that helps your team win that game because not only do you get the defensive, or the offensive holding call, which backs them up, but now maybe it puts them out of field goal range. Maybe now we stop them on, third down. Or if they go for it on a fourth down and we get to stop and we win the game in a tight game. I think that that's a very important rule to the challenge options that needs to be added at some point to the NFL. Obviously, it's not going to happen in 2024. But these are the things that if you guys agree with these things, we can always start petitions to make noise, right? You guys can talk about it to make noise. You can share this video to make noise if you agree with these things, which, by the way, do us a favor and like the stream right now and share it wherever you have a social media platform. And then also do us a favor and check out one of our sponsors, sportspider.com. That is sports SP. Get all of your sports in one place. They did an excellent job yesterday at putting all of the schedules out, all of the different teams, and especially all of the sports that are available to you, whether it's MMA, NASCAR, F1, whatever it is. Check out sportspider.com. Overtime rules in the UFL. So overtime consists of alternating attempts to score from the opponent's 5-yard line with no kicks allowed. It will be the best of 3 format until a winner has been determined. I think the NFL had a very similar, a very similar overtime rule years ago, where I think we started at the 25 and you kind of went back and forth a little bit. So I think we've moved on from that type of an overtime rule. I'm not real keen on starting on the 5-yard line and just trying to punch it in. I think it's too easy. For most teams anyway, it would be too easy. And I think it would just drag on forever. So I'm not a big fan of that one. Obviously, the NFL kicking rule has changed, and we'll see what that's all about this year. But then they talk about replay reviews. So they have designated members of the officiating department that may stop a game at any time before the ball is next legally put in play to review a play if a play is reviewable. There is reasonable evidence to believe an error was made in the initial ruling, and it would have a direct competitive impact on the game. That's the word that we need to attach to. Competitive. If the competitive nature of a game is removed because of the officials' lack of calling the right, play on the field, calling the right penalty, making the right decision, you are now removing the competitive nature of the game, and you are giving another team the ability over top of you to, or you're giving the other team a chance, a better chance than what your team has. Lost for words this morning, and I apologize. But these reviews will be made from a secure location separate from the site of the game. Any call or non-call related to player safety is also subject to review at any point during the game, as well as any officiating rule in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter or overtime that is obviously incorrect. That one I love. So any officiating rule in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter or overtime that is obviously incorrect and will have a significant impact on the outcome of the game. So imagine the Cowboys game last year where they clearly got it wrong. Now I think they reviewed it to death. They weren't going to change their ways. But imagine the conversation that would have been had between Brad Allen and Dan Campbell. We only heard bits and pieces. I read mouths to try to get the words, out of Dan Campbell, and what was actually said. But having these refs mic'd up and having everything available changes this game. And I think that we need to put the pressure on the NFL to adopt what the UFL is doing with transparency. Anything else you want to add, Eric?
Yeah. So imagine you're at your job and your job is to talk to people. And let's say it has to be your word against somebody else's word later on. Wouldn't it make you a much more honest employee if you were mic'd up and you knew you were being recorded the whole time? Where before you were just on security camera and they couldn't hear what you were saying, but now they can hear what you're saying. Aren't you going to watch what you're saying a little bit more and be a little more honest in what you're doing? It would make you have to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, anytime that you're in a situation where, now I can't say when you call a company or whatever and they say this phone call could be recorded. I'm not going to watch my P's and Q's. That's a little bit different. But yeah, if you know that you're being monitored, I feel like your habits change and maybe you do things a little bit differently depending on what that habit or what the situation is, right? Obviously, I was monitored yesterday while I was doing my landscaping and video caught me getting bashed in the head by a 4x6. So I didn't change what I was doing. I still got damn near knocked out, but no, to your point, yes. When you are monitored, I think people's behavior is different. And if we knew that they were mic'd up, take that case point right there. The green dot, or whenever these guys are mic'd up, for a game, what do they go around and tell players? Hey, I'm mic'd up. They go to everybody. I'm mic'd up. I'm mic'd up. They let everybody know around them they're mic'd up. Why do you think that is? So now they put them on notice to say, watch what you say.
Yeah, watch your P's and Q's.
It's not that they're not going to swear or whatever. They still are who they are. They still say the funny things that they're going to say. But, I think it just puts everybody on notice a little bit. But for the refs to be mic'd up, I would love to have been a fly on Dan Campbell's shoulder during that interaction with Brad Allen to really get, and somebody has the audio. Somebody has the audio. The NFL definitely has the audio.
It exists.
So whether we ever get it or not, I doubt it. But look, I think the UFL is bringing pressure with this. I think that the fans that have watched the UFL and appreciated the accountability to your comment, Wayne Rogers, and the transparency, I think that it is now going to put pressure on the NFL to make some changes at some point. How soon it happens, we don't know, but we do know this. Jalen Reeves-Maben is now the president of the NFLPA. That would be the guy that I would expect to, try to push for some changes. Now that's a players association, so it's a little bit different, but as a player, wouldn't you want your game to be fair and the competitive nature to be fair? And that's all they ask for is a level playing field, literally a level playing field. That's all they want. Let the chips fall where they may, right? Mano a mano, coach versus coach, playbook versus playbook. Let the chips fall where they may. Let's not have a ref interrupt the hard work of these guys, each and every season that they put in. I think it demoralizes you as a football player. I think it really would. I think that it really crushes you a little bit when a fan or a referee screws something up that badly that interrupts your season. And to someone else's point earlier, you know what? It does make a difference for that NFC title game. We potentially were at home for that third game. In Ford Field is a very difficult place to win if you are not the Detroit Lions. And at least it will be for many more years to follow. Ford Field is completely sold out again, season ticket wise. And it's going to be fun to watch games here again this year. So what else you want to end with today? Anything else on your docket, Eric?
Yeah. So Rick here says, do you slow down when you see a cop on the road? I rest my case. You do. When you see a cop and you're doing 80 in a 75, you slow down a little bit. Everybody does. They pump the brakes, they let off the gas. Everybody does. Keeps you honest, right? Not necessarily going to come after you, but it keeps you honest, right? And so I really like that. And for ending the show today, I will say this. I'm a sports bettor, and all of the over-unders and point spreads came out for week 1. And the Lions are +3. And I did place a $100 bet on the Lions. And I'm going to do it every week of the season as it goes. And I'm going to see if betting $100 on the Lions to win straight up every week, how much that makes me or doesn't make me at the end of the season. Last year, I did pretty darn good doing that.
You're going to bet $100 every week on the Lions to win the what?
Just straight up. No point spread.
So the money line, is that what they call that?
Yeah, money line every week.
It tells you how much I know about sports betting. I've never really, I mean, I'll do a little bit when I get like the free money every year.
Yeah. So,
but
I have a bunch of money left over from my last 2 years of betting, and I just leave it in there. I started with $100 or $200 and I built it up to thousands just betting on the Lions the last 2 years. And my favorite thing to do is just to bet the money line. If you're betting with point spreads, you don't get as much money when they win. And right now the Lions are -166. So my $100 bet's going to win me $166 or $164, something like that. And, yeah,
I can't believe that the Lions are they're not favored then for week 1.
Yes, they are favored by 3.
Well, they are favored. Okay.
Yeah, they're favored by 3, and the over under is 50.5 for week 1. Oh, I did share that last night too.
Yeah, I would bet the over for sure. There's gonna be a lot more points scored in that game. All right, so bus trips. I'll be on the phone today as soon as we hang up here. Bus trips are being scheduled. I've got the preliminary itinerary all set. I'll be finalizing pricing today. If you guys want to join some of the bus trips this year, I'll be putting more information out soon, but these are the games that we're targeting. So Green Bay, Chicago, and Indianapolis are single day trips leaving out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. You just got to get to Grand Rapids, and then the rest is history. If you want to purchase a away game ticket and you are already in the area that we're traveling to and you're not going to take the bus trip, I will try to figure out a way to offer additional tickets to be with the group. But the plan is game ticket, you'll get a custom t-shirt for that game. So obviously to be a t-shirt that highlights, that game and who, what group you're with. Box lunch, you'll have something on the bus to eat, of course, snacks and sandwich, whatever. Obviously we'll put a little menu together. You guys can pick what you want. Tailgate potluck. What that means is what it says. If you're joining the bus, just bring a dish. We'll put a list out. Maybe I'll do it through Google Docs or something that I think is easy for everybody to pick up on. And that way you can just kind of check off what you're going to bring, and I'll make a menu, and then people can kind of pick, what they want to bring in. If we're going to make multiples of something, you could bring a multiple of something. This includes all of your tips, your fuel surcharges, your parking fees, your overnight travel, if needed. Obviously, there's a bathroom on board the bus. We'll take breaks, as needed. Obviously, the seats are really comfortable. You got plenty of room for overnight bags, laptop bags, whatever, and plenty of room under the bus to store things for your tailgate. So if you want to bring chairs or a table or grill or whatever you want, we'll be able to have some things. We just can't bring propane. Propane you'd have to buy there, which would be difficult. So bring charcoal. Soft drinks and water be available on the bus. Snacks, obviously. Live podcast. We'll probably either do it from the bus or when we get to the location. The plan is to get to every location 5 hours before kickoff. That way we have plenty of time to have fun, set up, tear down, put things away, get to the game, inside on time. If you're like me, you like to be inside at least an hour before. BYOB, if you want to drink any spirits, it's on you. And you can drink on the bus. It's not encouraged, but just don't puke, because if you puke, it's $500. So putting the rest of this together. I'm excited to be able to offer this year. It's something that I've been talking about for a while now. And I want to offer a way to get more fans to away games. The Honolulu Blue Takeover. We want to go across this nation and really, try to spread our enjoyment of the Lions everywhere. We did a great job last year, but I want to get to every single away game if possible this year. And I feel like this is the best way to get it done. You sharing all the costs with everybody. For instance, like Chicago obviously is the cheapest game as far as travel is considered. I want to say the ticket was right around $450 per person, which was bus, and then everything else that's included. And then the game ticket up on the Sky Deck, which is it's a phenomenal way to watch the game at Soldier Field. And then you have private bathrooms and food and drink options right there on the Sky Deck. So it makes it really easy for us. You don't have to go everywhere. And then, of course, you have more time to be able to explore. So more information will follow. I might make a dedicated social media for this some way, or if Chef is still with us, he might be able to help us with the website and be able to add these types of things. But we'll get a sign-up sheet going probably by next week. I know I have a busy week next week traveling and that. So we'll have some show days that we're going to miss. But more information to follow. But let your people know, man. I posted it on my Twitter at Will Rock Jr. I think I posted it on all the Twitters, but that's where you can at least find it and share it so people that want to join, they can. Anything else this morning? What else did we have today? So we had the bus trips, Jared Goff contract. There was some more things that came out about his contract, but we'll save that for tomorrow. His contract actually is quite weird in my opinion, but we'll review some of that stuff tomorrow. So that's all for today. I appreciate everybody that joined in the Rise and Grind morning show provided by Rock Down Detroit Lions podcast. Don't forget, Off the Cuff is tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Friday, right?
Yeah,
tomorrow's Friday. So Off the Cuff tomorrow night, and then back on might be a week off as I leave on Sunday to go to Cleveland. So, all right, you guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Eric, hang out 1 minute after the show, and we'll chat for just a second. You guys take care. Go Detroit Lions.
Yeah, rock on.